The Supreme Court chamber did not erupt, it froze. Justice Sotomayor removed her glasses slowly. She looked straight at the petitioner's table and spoke 3 words. The cover-up ends now. Outside, chaos erupted in the hallway. Donald Trump's lead attorney dropped his phone. It shattered on the marble floor. A court clerk sprinted past, whispering urgently into a secure line. They cited the Zurich transfer, the signal logs, all of it. At the same moment, in Omaha, Nebraska, Warren Buffett sat at his desk. CNBC played softly in the background. He was sipping a cherry Coke. Then the news alert scrolled across his screen. His hand stopped midair. His expression changed. Disbelief, then sorrow, then resolve. And because his microphone was still live, unintentionally, the world heard it. Clear, unscripted, raw. He whispered, "Oh my God, 17 seconds, that's all it lasted. The feed cut, the clip vanished. But you saw it." And what happens next, no one saw coming. This was not just another Supreme Court ruling. This was the moment the legal wall around Donald Trump finally cracked and collapsed inward. The case was officially titled United States v. Trump, but insiders called it the certification case. At its core, a simple, devastating question. Can a former president be prosecuted for crimes committed after leaving office if those crimes were designed to overturn a democratic election? The court answered, yes, unanimously, 7-2, with even 2 conservative justices joining the majority. But the true bombshell was hidden in Appendix B, a 47-page evidentiary annex released under seal, then leaked within minutes. It included encrypted signal messages from January 5th, the night before the Capitol attack, bank records from a Zurich account tied to a shell company in the Cayman Islands, and a sworn affidavit from a former Secret Service agent stating that Trump was warned in real time that the crowd was armed and replied, "Let them march. They'll do what needs to be done." This wasn't about process. It wasn't about technicalities. This was about accountability finally reaching the highest office. Legal scholars are calling it the most consequential separation of powers ruling since United States v. Nixon. And here's what no major network led with. The ruling explicitly stated that presidential immunity does not extend to acts of domestic terrorism, defined under federal law as violent coercive acts intended to influence government policy by intimidation. Within 12 minutes, federal prosecutors in Washington filed a superseding indictment. But the true turning point came not from a courtroom or a press conference. It came from a quiet office in Omaha, where one man, who built his life on trust, finally spoke, and the world stopped to listen. For nearly a decade, Donald Trump sold one idea above all others: I am untouchable. It wasn't just confidence, it was a performance. Refined, repeated, weaponized. Indictments weren't warnings, they were trophies. Subpoenas weren't legal obligations, they were proof the deep state was afraid. At rally after rally, he held up court documents like championship belts. "They've got nothing," he'd roar. "This is a witch hunt." The crowd would chant back, not in defense, but in devotion. Truth became secondary to loyalty. Facts bent to narrative. And consequences, they were for other people. He built a legal strategy not on precedent, but on spectacle. Lawyers were hired for television presence, not trial experience. Briefs were filed hours late, not by accident, but by design. Delay wasn't a tactic, it was the goal. And the ultimate gamble that the Supreme Court would fracture along ideological lines. That 3 conservative justices appointed by him would shield him. That loyalty would override law. He never imagined they'd read the full record. Because behind the bravado was a pattern, repeated, documented, undeniable. In 2016, he promised to release his taxes. He never did. In 2017, he called on Russia to find Hillary's emails. "I will give you the password," and then claimed it was a joke. In 2020, he refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. In 2021, he watched the Capitol riot for over 180 minutes and did nothing. Each time, the norm shattered. Each time the precedent weakened, each time the warning grew louder, from judges, from allies, even from his own cabinet. But he doubled down, because chaos wasn't a side effect, it was the engine. Confusion created cover, outrage drowned out evidence, and as long as the story kept changing, faster than the facts could land, accountability stayed out of reach. He mocked witnesses who testified under oath. He called judges Obama-appointed hacks, even when they were appointed by Reagan or Bush. He filed lawsuits based on theories so thin, clerks reportedly asked, "Is this a draft?" And the most dangerous belief of all, that the American people would choose him over institutions, that loyalty to a man mattered more than fidelity to the Constitution. But the Supreme Court's ruling exposed the fatal flaw in that theory, because the justices didn't just reject his immunity claim. They quoted his own words, word for word, from private messages, from recorded calls, from depositions he thought were sealed. They showed, step by step, how the cover-up was planned, not in haste, but in detail, not by underlings, but by him. The gavel didn't just fall in Washington. It fell on a myth that said power could erase truth, a myth that said fame could replace duty, a myth that said one man could stand above the law forever. But myths don't survive evidence, and on this day, the evidence was overwhelming. The king of chaos had one final card to play, but before he could even reach for it, a voice from Omaha cut through the noise, not with anger, not with politics, but with sorrow and truth. Warren Buffett was born in Omaha in 1930, 3 months after the stock market crash. His father was a grocer. His mother taught piano. Money was tight, but trust, that was abundant. He learned early, promises matter more than profits. At age 6, he bought a 6-pack of Coca-Cola for 25 cents, sold each bottle for a nickel, and pocketed a dime profit. Not because he loved soda, but because he loved the math of a fair deal. He built Berkshire Hathaway not on hype, but on patience. While others chased quarterly spikes, he bought undervalued companies and held them for decades. He never fired a worker to inflate a stock price. He never moved a factory overseas to dodge taxes. He paid his secretaries more than most CEOs paid themselves and insisted they get stock options too. Buffett avoided politics for most of his life. He hosted presidents at his home, but never endorsed one. He believed business should stay out of the ballot box. That changed in 2020. When asked why, he said simply, when the foundation cracks, even the quietest tenant has to speak up. He gave away over $50 billion, not in grand announcements, but in steady, unsung acts. He signed the Giving Pledge not for praise, but principle. His personal office, same one for 60 years. Same wooden desk, same secondhand chair. He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. People call him the Oracle of Omaha. But he hates the title. "I'm just a guy who reads balance sheets," he once said. The real oracles are teachers, nurses, firefighters, the ones who show up when no one's watching. His wisdom wasn't flashy. It was compound interest applied to character. It takes 20 years to build a reputation, he warned, and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. He watched the January 6th hearings in silence. He read every transcript. He studied the financial trails, the shell companies, the dark money networks, the foreign payments disguised as consulting fees. He didn't tweet. He didn't call reporters. He waited. Because Warren Buffett believes in one law above all others: time. Time reveals motives. Time exposes lies. Time rewards integrity, even when it's inconvenient. He once said, "Price is what you pay. Value is what you get." And on the morning of November 14th, 2025, when the Supreme Court ruling dropped, he finally saw the true price of chaos and the enduring value of truth. He didn't stand up to be a hero. He stood up because no one else would. Not for fame, not for power, but because at 95 years old, he still believed America was worth saving. And sometimes Saving it starts with 3 whispered words. Oh my God. CNBC's Market Watch was wrapping up a routine segment. Stocks flat, oil up 2%, when the Supreme Court ruling flashed across the lower third. Anchor Amanda Lee glanced at her monitor, paused, and said calmly, "We're now receiving the full text of the court's decision in United States versus Trump." The camera stayed on her, but just off-frame, visible in the wide shot, Warren Buffett sat at his desk, eyes fixed on his own screen. His expression changed. His hand slowed, then stopped, halfway to his mouth. Lee continued, "The ruling appears unanimous on the core question of post-presidential immunity." Then, Buffett leaned forward, gently. Deliberately, he tapped his microphone once. A soft click echoed in the studio. Lee turned. "Mr. Buffett, we'll get your reaction after this break." He raised one finger, not aggressively, just firmly. She hesitated, nodded. The feed stayed live. Across the country, millions watched, phones buzzed, group chats flooded. Is he going to speak? In the White House briefing room, aides froze. One reporter whispered, "Buffett's mic is hot." Then, on Truth Social, a post appeared. Fake ruling, Soros court. Buffett is a traitor who sold out America. 8 seconds later, it was deleted, but the screenshot spread instantly. Back in Omaha, Buffett didn't react to the noise. He didn't glance at his phone. He just looked into the camera, calm, sorrowful, resolute, and began to speak. Not as a billionaire, not as a CEO, but as a citizen who remembered when truth wasn't optional. The stock ticker kept running, but the world, it stopped. Warren Buffett took a slow breath, adjusted his glasses, looked not at the camera, but through it, as if speaking to every American watching, alone in their kitchen, their car, their break room. He began quietly, "I've watched markets crash. I've seen empires rise and fall, but I've never seen someone so afraid of the truth. They'd rather burn the courthouse than walk inside." A pause, long enough to land. This isn't about left or right. It's about light or dark. He reached into his desk drawer, not for notes, but for a single sheet of paper, yellowed at the edges. The 1956 Berkshire Hathaway shareholder letter, his first. "I built this company on one idea. Trust is the cheapest capital you'll ever raise. You don't need interest rates. You don't need collateral. You just need your word to mean something." He set the letter down. Mr. Trump ran his businesses on debt. He ran his presidency on division. And now, he's trying to run from accountability on delay. Another pause. His voice softened but sharpened. "They say he's being treated unfairly. Let me ask you, when a small business owner lies on a loan application, what happens? They go to jail. When a teacher falsifies student records, what happens? They lose their license. When a mayor hides campaign donations, what happens? They resign in disgrace." He leaned in slightly. "So why, when a president allegedly conspires to overturn an election, hides evidence, pressures witnesses, and tells a mob to march on the Capitol, why is the expectation different? Not lighter, not special, just fair." A beat. The studio was silent. Even the floor director stopped breathing. "I'm not here to convict anyone. That's for a jury. I'm here to say this. We don't get to pick which laws apply to us. The Constitution isn't a menu. It's the foundation. And foundations don't care how rich you are or how loud you shout." Then the line that would echo for weeks. "You can lie to the public. You can lie to your allies. You can even lie to yourself, but you cannot lie to time. Time always collects. And today, the bill came due." He didn't raise his voice, didn't gesture, just sat back. But in that moment, Trump's legal team knew, reporters knew, the nation knew. The narrative had flipped. This wasn't a political takedown. It was a moral correction, delivered not with fury, but with finality. And when Buffett added just before the feed cut, "I've lived long enough to know, character isn't what you say in victory. It's what you do when no one's left to impress." That wasn't just a statement. It was a challenge to everyone watching, especially one man in Florida, who, according to a source inside Mar-a-Lago, turned off the TV and didn't speak for 23 minutes. Within 3 minutes, Omaha Declaration hit #1 worldwide on X. A 22-year-old coder in Austin spliced Buffett's speech over footage of postal workers, ER nurses, and night shift janitors. Caption, "These are the people who keep America running, not the ones trying to break it." It hit 10 million views in 40 minutes. At a union hall in Scranton, Pennsylvania, steelworkers paused their meeting. Someone projected Buffett's feed on the wall. When he said, "Trust is the cheapest capital you'll ever raise," the room erupted, not in cheers, but in something deeper, recognition. One veteran welder wiped his eyes and said, "He remembered us." Fox News scrambled. On America Reports, host Greg Gutfeld tried to pivot. "Fascinating market reaction. Let's go to stocks." But guest analyst Dana Perino interrupted. "Greg, this isn't about markets. This is about morality." The camera cut to black, 3 seconds early. Then came the resignations. 2 Republican senators issued identical statements within 12 minutes. After reviewing the full ruling and Mr. Buffett's remarks, "I can no longer support the current legal strategy." A third, a Trump 2024 campaign co-chair, quietly withdrew his endorsement, citing the weight of evidence and the call of conscience. Even Elon Musk, normally silent on politics, posted a single line, "Compound truth, compound interest." It became the most liked post of the year. Tucker Carlson, prepping a comeback special, recorded a segment defending Trump. Watch the Omaha clip. Then, off camera, told his producer, "Scrap it, write something new, something honest." The new script opened with, "Warren Buffett is right, the game is over." It aired once, then vanished. But the leak, still circulating. Most unexpected, a video from a high school in Des Moines. 72 students, black, white, Latino, Asian, immigrant, 5th generation, stood in the gym, each holding a handwritten sign. "I choose light. I choose time. I choose Omaha." They didn't chant, they didn't protest. They just stood, silent, united, resolute. The White House declined to comment, but behind closed doors, aides confirmed. The president watched the full clip twice, then said one sentence, "That was American." The shockwaves weren't just digital, they were generational, and they were just beginning. Buffett's final words weren't shouted, they were given like a gift passed hand to hand. "I'm 95 years old," he said, voice steady, "and I've outlived recessions, wars, and scams. But the one force that always wins? Time. Time reveals character. Time forgives mistakes, but not betrayals. Time is undefeated." He wasn't declaring victory. He was stating a law, like gravity. This moment wasn't about punishment. It was about restoration. For too long, we were told truth was relative. Loyalty mattered more than honesty. Winning justified the means. But Buffett reminded us, institutions aren't buildings, they're promises. Between generations, between citizens, between who we are and who we say we are. You don't need wealth to uphold that promise. You don't need power. You just need courage to speak when silence is easier, to stand when sitting is safer, to choose dignity even when outrage is trending. A teacher in Cleveland showed her students the clip. A veteran in Phoenix pinned a flag to his porch, not as a symbol of party, but of principle. A small business owner in Boise paid her staff an unexpected bonus and wrote on the envelope, "Because trust matters." That's the ripple, not revenge, not gloating, but renewal. Because America wasn't built by perfect people. It was built by people who believed deeply stubbornly in course correction. The tide has gone out. The rocks are visible, but the water will return. And when it does, we don't rebuild the sandcastles of ego. We lay stronger foundations. Truth, accountability, quiet courage. Buffett didn't save America that day. He reminded us, we still can. This wasn't just breaking news. It was a breaking point. The moment the illusion shattered, that chaos could win forever. That loyalty to a person could replace loyalty to principle. That truth was optional. Warren Buffett didn't speak as a billionaire. He spoke as a citizen, as a witness, as someone who still believes in his bones that America is worth the hard work of repair. And so do we. If this moment moved you, if it reminded you of the America you want to live in, don't let it fade. Share it, not to score points, but to spark reflection, to tell someone you're not alone in wanting better. Subscribe to this channel, not for outrage, but for clarity, for stories where dignity wins, where courage shows up, even at 95, where history isn't rewritten, it's reclaimed. Because the next chapter of American renewal won't be written in courtrooms or cable studios. It'll be written by people like you, choosing truth, choosing patience, choosing to plant trees whose shade you'll never sit under. This is more than a video. It's an invitation to stand not on the sidelines, but in the light. The tide's gone out, now let's rebuild.